Good evening, good afternoon. I don't know where everybody logged in from, but welcome. My name is Black, and welcome to Claiming Space Stories We Carry, Staying Alive in the Era of Mass Incarceration. And this virtual event is brought to you by Healing Broken Circles. Healing Broken Circles is a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide opportunities to heal, learn, and thrive for those touched by the justice system. And many of us in this space have been affected. Now, I can't continue on without saying that Healing Broken Circles operates a community center in Marion Correctional Institution in Ohio, where we provide 30 some odd programs in a space that's for learning, humanity, healing, and opportunity. And it's just a quick shout out to our supporters and the Ohio Arts Council, the Art for Justice Fund, and the Returning Artists Guild. So we have a treat for y'all. Please sit back and enjoy. And I want to welcome y'all right now to Kevin Cordi. He can explain to y'all who he is.
Wow, thank you. It's better when you can hear me. So just take a deep breath and we'll take the good journey. I want to tell you a little bit about stories and the power of the people that I'm working with in this particular Healing Broken Circle. Stories have the power to transport those who hear them. They can take you to places you've never been, but you can experience them from the teller. Stories have the power to help you travel and meet people and be in places, but first, you need to be invited. For the last 3 months, I've been invited to be with powerful people and work with them as they find their truth in their stories. We do this by deeply listening to each other and giving ourselves permission to tell. They've claimed their space to tell their stories. Now you are invited to hear these stories, stories you won't find anywhere else. You're invited to listen deeply so that we can learn how story builds connection. After all, stories make us real. Back to Black.
Thank you, Kevin. And now I want to introduce y'all to the MC for the night, a woman who needs no introduction. Please welcome Kamisha.
Thank you, Black. Thank you, Kevin Cordi. Good to see everyone here virtually in this space. I'm going to MC tonight, and in true storytelling workshop fashion, I'm going to start with a short story. See, at the beginning of this workshop, we had an assignment to write a story that would last for 2 minutes. And the idea was that we would improve on those 2-minute stories until we had what was presented before you here this evening. However, if you write at all, you know that stories can take twists and turns, and then you can decide to come up with a completely different story. So without further ado, here's the 2-minute exercise that kind of got our workshop started. 8 letters, 3 words, one very emphatic statement was carved into the desk where I sat. It's important to note that I did not choose this seat. I'm more of a front of the class type of girl, but this was my first day at a new school. I was late and this was the only seat left. I lost interest in the class as soon as I noticed the engraving. Immediately, I wanted to know why. I imagined a number of scenarios that would drive a person to etch those words into that desk. When the bell rang, signaling the end of class, I barely noticed some of the other students were looking at me curiously before they left the class. And as I stood to exit the room, the teacher approached me. She said, according to your transcripts, you don't need this class. You don't have to come if you don't want to. She said that as she handed me the syllabus. Just make sure you show up for the final exam. I'm sure you'll pass. Thank you, I responded hesitantly. I was really just trying to get out of that classroom. When I got to my next class, I saw the same 8 letters, 3 words, and emphatic statement. This time it was on the spine of an Edgar Allan Poe book, written in metallic marker. I saw it again in the cafeteria, etched into the plexiglass window. Um, then I saw it again in the bathroom stall, and at this point, the phrase was haunting me. As I walked home, I pondered the type of person who would make the statement over and over again. I caught a glimpse of a sad looking boy sitting in front of a small memorial by a tree. I wasn't going to stop, but I heard him sobbing and repeating the words that had been haunting me all day. I must have stepped on a twig as I approached quietly from behind. I was trying to see if I could get a glimpse of a person or see a photo or a name that I could look up, but my cover was blown. The boy looked at me with a tear-stained face and he said, "I was here. Tell her I was here." The end. The next storyteller is going to be Amy, who just wants to make art for the rest of her life. Something interesting about her, she's lived in 6 states. She's an accomplished swimmer and promises to teach me how to swim before I die. She's a soccer mom and she's been inspired by Gwen Garth, who is another returning Artist Guild member. And she probably doesn't want everyone to know this, but she hates mayonnaise. So don't approach her with it. Don't put it on her sandwich. And please don't have it hanging off the side of your mouth because she'll probably throw up. Have
Thank
at it,
you
Amy.
for that awesome introduction. And I think you guys changed the order of storytellers on me. I don't recall going first, but welcome everybody, and here we go. I was injured, dirty, and drunk under a bridge, a place affectionately called the Cunt Yard, when the text came in. Happy heroin anniversary, it said. Do you remember the first time? Slumping against the concrete, I read the text again. Felt my spine align and my body tighten around the message, trying to restrict the onslaught of memory. I was 16 and hanging out in an upstairs bathroom while his grandma made us after school snacks. I didn't know how to cook and shoot dope, and this was long before the era of a YouTube tutorial for everything. I remember burning my needle points to sterilize them and acted over the course of time with tattoo my track marks into visual permanence. Track marks that I often run a lingering finger over, track marks that take me back into too many of the places I'd rather forget. Track marks that tell their own story to every employer, healthcare worker, and nosy neighbor. Track marks that imprisoned me in that bathroom and so many bathrooms to come. I remember how scared you were, how you cried about cancer and your dad, needles. I remember how annoyed with your display of emotion I was, how I kicked you out of the bathroom to finish my guesswork of the process alone. And when I finally hit the vein, the warmth came into my stomach, in my mouth, in my brain. I drowned in it. Back in your bedroom, I shot you up, and you cried until the warmth came into your belly too. And then we laid outside on the ground and watched the clouds rolling over our heads. But there are no clouds here. just water under the bridge. And watching the water, I'm struck by an idea. I mean, I remember the gist of the day, but I don't remember the time of year, or the month, or the day. What kind of a person remembers that date anyway? What kind of person considers it an anniversary? And worse, what about those real anniversaries? And my failure to care, to give space and priority to dates and times. My absolute choice to forget. Mike only texts me with memories, a bunch of Kurt Cobain type shit. He still plays music, I still paint. He has imagined our relationship to death. And when I first got out of prison, he thought that we would be together, but I didn't know that. I never would have thought that, so I couldn't stop him from slashing my tires outside a hotel where I was sleeping with someone else. My mother would be furious, upon hearing this story, that I still talk to Mike. And I'm sure you can imagine her arsenal of good reasons for that. But I feel sorry for him. And after all, look at me. I'm drunk, fallen off a shopping cart for the second time this week, and I'm starting to doubt myself and doubt my paintings. But when it starts to rain, my body drags me back down to the bridge, the trek through the woods, the drive to park, the loading and the unloading, the work, the time, the block walls, the razor wire, the work, the time, the second death, the abuse, the lows, the highs, the lovers, the dope, the skipping school, the adoption, the first death, the scribbling on walls. My body drags me back to origin, masonry and dust.
Oh, crap. Did I unmute it? Okay, I'm unmuted. All right. Thank you so much, Amy. That was beautiful. Whew. Can everybody just take a moment to woosah on that? It was it's a lot to unpack in there. Such a beautiful story. Okay. Well, up next on my list is Carl, who would love to live in a log cabin off the grid. He's a wealth of knowledge, including useless trivia, and he has a super recognizer. He recognizes faces regularly. His biggest inspiration is Shaka Senghor, and something that I think people don't know about him is something about how t-shirts fit around his neck. Is that a pet peeve,
Yeah,
Carl?
I'm really particular about how t-shirts fit around my neck, and they
Very particular about how, okay, so that's what that means. All right, Carl, take it away.
All right, thank you, Kamisha. What a day, what a day to be alive, I think to myself as I lean back in the back seat of my friend's Jeep. Zach's driving, Kevin's in the passenger seat, and I'm sprawled out in the back. Just three 19-year-old kids driving around, living life. I'm at home on break from school, from college for the summer. Besides my summer job, I don't have a care in the world. I'm free and I'm loving it. It's a warm summer day and we have the top down, and I stare up into the cloudless blue sky. I can feel the slightly cool breeze coming off Lake Michigan as we drive. As I look up into the sky, I notice that the sun's getting brighter and brighter and bigger. I look up to Kevin and Zach to see if they notice, but they're lost in conversation. They don't see a thing. As I look back up at the sun, I realize it's so bright, I can't even look at it. I've got to shield my eyes and look away. It's getting so bright, it's almost as if the sun is shining directly into my face. And that's when I hear it, the sound of glass and metal meeting. I open my eyes and I see a flashlight shining directly into my face. I shut my eyes as tightly as I can and I say, no, 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 not again, no, in hope that when I open my eyes back up, I'll be back in the backseat of that Jeep and not where I think I am. And as I open my eyes, the flashlight's still there. And I see the corrections officer holding it. I roll over, and once he sees me move, he moves on to count the next guy. Fuck, I'm still here. I look around, and I'm in my prison cell. It's dark, it's cold, and I'm all alone. It's a world away from the warm summer day in my dreams of home. I've been incarcerated for 30 days at this point, and every morning I've woken up like that. I dream of home, and I wake up in the nightmare of my reality. It's not getting any easier either, and I worry that I'm not going to be able to make it through this. Later that afternoon, I call my sister from the phones in the hallway. It's a clock call, of course, coming from prison. Hey, Carl. Hey, sis. Hey, Carl, I saw Coach Taylor last night at the game, and he said to tell you hi and that he's praying for you. I say, thanks. I'm choking back tears. Carl, are you okay? And I get as close as I can to the phone so that no one can see my face. And I cover my eyes and I start to break down. Sis, I can't do this. I can't do it anymore. I'm not going to make it. I can't do this. I just want to come home. She says, Carl, I know we're doing everything we can, but you can't come home. You can do this. You've got this. You've got no choice but to do this. We both collect ourselves and finish the conversation with some meaningless small talk. And as I hang up the phone and walk away, I realize that I'm as alone and as scared as I've ever been in my life. I wake up to the sound of someone banging on my cell door. It's day 182 of my incarceration. And the dreams had gone away months ago, thankfully. It makes waking up a lot easier. As I roll over, I see Bluegill looking in my cell. Yeah, he goes by Bluegill. No, I don't know why. Yo, Johnny, meet me out on the yard. 10 minutes. I nod and let him know I'll be out there. Yeah, I don't go by Carl anymore. I go by Johnny. Bluegill and some of the other guys on the block that I hang out with decided to give me the nickname Johnny. It's short for Johnny All-American, because they told me I don't look like anybody that belongs in prison. I look like the All-American kid. Minutes later, I'm out on the yard and I'm standing next to Bluegill, waiting on old man Bob. Bluegill's getting a tattoo that day, and I'm going to be on lookout. And old man Bob's going to be the tattoo artist. And as we stand there waiting for him, we see a bus pull in inside the razor wire. Catches our attention. New guys coming in straight for county. As we both watch the guys get off the bus, we don't talk, but I know that we're both doing the same thing. with each guy that gets off that bus, we're sizing each of them up and we're making notes about which ones are going to make it and which ones we think won't. And I laughed to myself. 6 months ago, anybody watching me get off that bus, no one would have thought I was going to make it. Hell, I didn't even think I was going to make it. But here I am. I'm over a year away from that kid in the backseat of that Jeep without a care in the world. And I'm 6 months removed from that scared kid getting off that bus. And I'm doing all right. I got my boys that look out for me like Bluegill, and I look out for them. They're like family to me now. And I got a nickname. Nicknames aren't just nicknames in prison. Nicknames are a rite of passage. If this is where I gotta live for a while, so be it. I'm okay. I can do this. Just then, old man Bob walks up, and Bluegill and Bob sit down on the picnic table directly behind me. I find the nearest camera on the yard, and I stand and I shift over so that I'm blocking its view of what's going on behind me. And then my next job is to make sure that no COs can see what's going on, or nobody gets curious about what we're up to. Because if they come back there, it's not going to be good. You see, the tattoo gun that old man Bob has is made out of a modified radio and some other spare parts and some piano wire that he collected over his years as a maintenance man. And each of those things is contraband. Oh yeah, and getting a tattoo in prison, that's against the rules too. And I'm here, so I'm guilty by association. I'm making sure that we don't get caught, because if we get caught, it's not gonna be a little bit of trouble. It's gonna be a lot of trouble. It's on me to make sure that doesn't happen. I stand there for a while, keeping an eye out, and I hear old man Bob say he's finishing up, he's almost done. And I turn around and I see that Bluegill is getting a tribal band tattoo around his bicep. That's about the size of a football. Yeah, it's 1999. Of course he's getting a tribal band tattoo. As I'm admiring Bob's work on Bluegill's arm, I see a few little specks of blood formed right on the inside of the arm where he just finished. And I think to myself, that's normal for tattoos to bleed a little bit. Apparently nobody told Bluegill that though. His eyes are glassing over and his head's bobbing. He's about to pass out at the sight of his own blood. I laugh, turn around, shake him a few times, slap him up on the face a couple times, say, hey, you with me, man? You with me? Stay with me, bro. You're good. You good? He comes back. Yeah, I'm good. We both laugh, and I think to myself, man, I am never going to let him live this down. Day 540 of my incarceration. It's an overcast, windy day, and I just got done shooting 3 people that I didn't know in the back of the head. Why, you ask? They stole a magazine. I had to teach them a lesson. And as I put my pistol away, I bolt up out of my sleep, and I open my eyes, and I see my prison cell around me. And I'm thankful for that. Thankful to be in that cell, not in that field. The dreams have started coming back, but they're different now. They're violent dreams. They're dreams in which I hurt people badly, or they're dreams in which I kill them. I wake up with my heart pounding, I'm sweating, and my hands are shaking. My dreams scare me because I don't think I'm a violent person, but I think my dreams are telling me that I might be. I'm a few weeks away from getting transferred to a facility back home and a few months away from going in front of the parole board. If all goes well, I'll be out walking the streets on parole in just over 6 months. That's if all goes well. Later that night, I'm walking down the hallway back to my cell. I'm tired, it's late, and I just want to go to bed. And Junior's behind me, running his mouth. Junior is always running his mouth. Usually it doesn't bother me though. I just let it slide off my back. But tonight, for some reason, it got to me. As I got to my cell door, he started to pass me. I didn't even know what he was saying. It didn't matter. It all happened in a split second. In that split second, I had hit my hand around his throat, my other hand around his collar, and I shoved him into my room. I told him to shut the fuck up. And a moment later, I'm on top of him with my left hand gripped around his neck, not quite choking him, but tight. And my right hand balled back, ready to start beating his face in. I look over my shoulder to the room, to my door, make sure somebody's watching out for the CO, and I see two young standing there. You're good, Johnny. You're good. The CO hasn't left his office yet. You got a couple minutes, man. Do what you got to do. I got your back. I turn back around and I see Junior's face, and all I see is fear in his eyes. He's right to be scared because he sees the anger in mine. I've never been as angry as I was in that moment. Every fiber of my being was tingling with anger, and every voice in my head was telling me, bash this kid's face in. I wish I could tell you that it was because I had a good heart, and that's the reason I didn't hit him that night. But that's not it, even though I wish it was. I had a moment of clarity as I looked down on Junior. I realized if I hit him, I'm not going to stop hitting him. And that means I'm going to the hole. And that means I probably won't get out in 6 months. That's why I didn't hit him. I pulled him up off my bed, pushed him out of my room, and sat down on my bunk. Heart racing, sweating, and my hands are shaking. I looked down at my hands and realized I don't even know myself anymore. I'm not that kid that was in the backseat of that Jeep. He was carefree, innocent, loving, and loved to have fun. I'm as far away from him as I ever have been. Now I'm just a violent, angry, resentful, jaded, broken version of myself. And as I sit there, I think to myself, man, I hope that kid is waiting for me on the outside when I get out. I don't want to be this person anymore. I've been out of prison just over 20 years. And unfortunately, that kid wasn't waiting for me when I got out. I realized pretty quickly that he was gone forever, just a memory of who I once was. But every night, even now, when I lay myself down to sleep and I close my eyes, I smile and think to myself and hope, beyond hope, that I dream of that kid in the backseat of that Jeep again. Because, man, I really miss that kid. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow, I wasn't expecting that, Carl. That was really good. That was really, really good.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I was immersed. I was all into it. Going to keep this party rolling. Going to get to the next storyteller. Next on the list, we have Adam, who would love to spend his time in the deepest possible state of meditation, or killing zombies in Doom. He's kind of a goth kid. His dad's a pastor, so he grew up in a Christian household. He's a longtime vegetarian, but loves pork. His biggest inspiration is the Proclus, 4th century philosopher. And let's see, a known fact about him, probably that he's a beat maker and a producer. So without any further delay, Adam, let us hear your story.
Thank you, Kamisha, and thanks to everyone who's here and all the tellers who went before me. I'm just humbled by your stories. So I found myself alone in a room with a computer. No sounds but the running of the hard drive. On the 3rd floor of a prison in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. And it was my first time in prison. When I arrived, I had to leave everything that belonged to me in a locker that cost a couple quarters. Didn't have any quarters, but the person at the desk loaned me one. So I walked in without phone, without wallet, without keys. I'm ushered into this third floor closet and handed a 16-page packet, which asks for more information than you would ever need to steal somebody's identity. And since I don't have phone, wallet, or a very good memory, I had to do my best filling out social security number, which I did know, last 5 addresses, landlord's phone numbers, references, and etc. And I just want to take this time right now to apologize to you if you live in the 614 and ODRC called you 10 years ago asking about Adam Wetterhahn, because I accidentally wrote your phone number down trying to fake my way through this application. The training employee ushers me into this little closet with the computer, hands me the packet, opens a folder of about 10 or 12 videos for volunteer and contractor training, and says, "You know a thing or two about computers, right? You're young. I'm just going to go back to my office and you watch all these videos and then bring your packet back to me." He turns around and leaves. And I am tech savvy enough to realize, me being alone with the computer in this room with no quiz to speak of, that there really is no way he's going to know whether I watch all 2 hours of the video or not. So I pull out my notebook, which was the one thing I was allowed to bring in, and do some journaling and some thinking instead before double clicking on the first video. The first thing that hits me in the first video is the horrible 90s newsroom music that plays along with a slideshow, and a scowling face appears saying, "Welcome to the first video of ODRC volunteer and contractor training." And it sinks in. Every employee that I've seen thus far has been scowling. No one's looked particularly happy, and no one's asked me, why am I here? Why do I want to take this volunteer training or this contractor training? So I pause the video and I think a little bit, why am I here? Minutes tick by, and then I start watching again. And I'm just skipping through the videos because I'm pretty sure the employee's not coming back, and God knows I'd rather do anything else than watch these all the way through. So I'm clicking through the videos just a little bit at a time, and I'm hearing things like, always be in control of the situation. Never allow an inmate to know your first name, and never use their first name. They are their last name and their inmate number. Never be alone in a room with an inmate. If you are in a crowded hallway, never allow an inmate to go directly behind your back. And here they actually show a video of a staff member walking down the hallway with his back against the wall so that no residents will be right behind his back. Don't lose or ever drop your keys, or you will face a financial fine. And finally, the crowning jewel. If an inmate asks you for a writing utensil or tells you that your lunch smells good, they may be trying to establish a sexual relationship with you. You should immediately reprimand them and report them to the nearest officer. At this point, I'm not sure whether to sink into a deep depression or just to laugh alone by myself in that closet. And I'm thankful for the years of training in philosophy and critical thinking and mindfulness that have brought me to this point where I can see this and be critical enough to know that it's got to be mostly bullshit. After faking it for what seems like long enough, I finish filling out the packet and drop it off to the officer. I can't remember if he actually had his feet up on his desk, but it certainly seemed like that. I could smell the bad coffee. He leafs through the packet, sees my social and my signature, tosses it in the bin and says, "You're good to go, but you can't go anywhere by yourself. So sit over here in this waiting area and your escort will come pick you up." So I'm sitting there, 15 or 20 minutes go by and my escort arrives. Now I'm going into the prison proper. we walk down into what seemed to be an endless series of long hallways. I always want to know where I am in orient to north, south, east, and west, but in here, I can't tell what's what or where I am. I'm walking through crashing gates, and suddenly I'm in a sea of people, all wearing mostly the same faded blue jean blue, with occasional flashes of brown. All of these say inmate on the back. And every once in a while, I'll see someone with a gray or white uniform with keys jangling on their hip. These must be the officers. The sound of hushed and loud conversations. It feels like I've walked in to some postmodern indoor city. I hear the sound of keys jangling and occasionally shouts like, "You there, ID up on your collar, tuck your shirt in. This ain't a zoo." And I'm still walking down the long hallway and the sea of people, and the smell of the institutional food slaps me in the nose. My stomach turns over because I've been here a couple hours and I realize I'm hungry, but I'm also repulsed because it smells worse than any meal that my small town high school ever served. Past another crashing gate into an even larger industrial space, I hear the clang, the sturm and drang of work being done because I'm in the part of the prison where people carry out their jobs. But then I'm ushered over into a small network of 6 classrooms known as the community center. And as soon as the door closes behind me, I feel the air pressure change. The tone shifts. Even though it's the same terrible fluorescent light, the colors just feel a little different in here. And it's the same burnt coffee smell as the officer's office, but it just feels a little more like home. There's people huddled around a computer. There's a good-natured argument happening in the other corner. Some people sitting in a circle sharing poetry. I look around and I'm a little overwhelmed. This is my first time and I'm 22 years old. My escort brings me over to a small office in the corner of these 6 classrooms and says, "Adam, this is Matt. He works here in the community center. He's doing a really long time here at the prison, and he's going to be the one showing you around and training you today." She drops me off with Matt, who's leaned back in a chair, got a cane at his side, bald head, goatee, taller than me for sure. And I realize, just as Matt and I begin to talk, that he's been locked up since I was in middle school. So I'm intimidated by that. And before we really even have a chance to get into the flow of conversation, I realize that I'm already breaking one of the rules from the training video because I'm alone. I'm alone in a room with Matt. Matt leans forward onto his knees and makes eye contact with me. And I honestly feel like I've never had eye contact like this before. He doesn't say anything for a minute, although he looks skeptical. And then he says, "Why are you here?" And just as much as he leaned forward, I leaned back from the force of the question. And reaching into myself for an answer, I realize I don't have one. So I say, "I'm not really sure, Matt." And he leans in even more. And he says, "Something in it for you? You getting credit for a class? Somebody paying you to be here? Trying to check a box?" And I say, "No. In fact, I'm leaving my hourly job to be here this afternoon, so I'm probably losing money." And he still looks perplexed. "So then what is it that you're looking to get out of this experience?" he says. "Why come all the way here from Columbus where you live? Why are you here in prison?" And I start thinking, and 2 things come to mind. One is that the town I'm from, the kids I ran with, different version of my life, I could have ended up here for a totally different reason. So I find a way to say that. But I reach even a little deeper, and I realize that my mentors and my teachers in yoga and philosophy, the mystics that I've studied with, have always impressed upon me that the practices that changed my life don't belong in the ivory tower of academia, and they don't belong in the boutique yoga studios on the shiny streets downtown, but they belong in the places where they'll have the most impact. So I say to Matt, I think I'm here to share those things that have worked for me in case they might work for someone else. And I pause because it feels like there's something else. So I reach a little deeper and I say, really, Matt, I think I'm here to learn. He leans back, and for the first time, a smile, just a slight smile, crosses his lips, and the pressure in the room changes once again. And he says, all right, then, Adam, let me show you around. Technically, that's the end of the story, but I'd just like to share that I went on to work in that community center for another 9+ years after that moment. And Matt and I went on to be good friends. And years later, I reminded him of that conversation, and he shared to me that people come and go in prison, and people have their own agenda. And he said he's just not down for that bullshit. I mean, it's okay for people to have their own reasons for wanting to come behind bars, but he wants to know if somebody's invested and what they're invested in. And as our friendship grew, I always think back to that moment because it really set the tone. So thanks for listening.
And thank you, Adam. Very well said. Very good job describing, I think, what it would be like coming in as a volunteer to the prison. Of course, I don't know what that's like to go in as a volunteer, but your description of it was amazing. And we are going to keep our event rolling right along. Up next is a man of many talents. He is currently finishing up his college courses to get a degree in managing the public. Or no, he just recently received a certificate in managing the public. He's allowed to manage the public now. Give it up for none other than the magnificent Kevin Ballou.
Thank you. Thank you. So, the day you turn 18, does this automatic switch go from being a child to an adult? Do you just realize, hey, maybe I'm going to make decisions with a mature, clear mind today and not think like I was yesterday? You know, studies show that the brain doesn't even fully develop until the age of 25 anyway. And that speech I gave when I was 21 years old, and I gave to a room full of people. And when I gave that speech, I felt as if I was on my own road to development. But it didn't come with any flick of a switch or any passing of the moon to another day. It came with a whole process behind it. And it came with steady ground in which I could stand upon. You see, growing up, I had lost my steady ground. I was always a wild kid, always a child filled with energy and character. And from an early age, I was diagnosed with that learning disability, one that I've never give credence to, ADHD. But you know, don't let me get distracted on that. Now, see, ADHD doesn't blend well. ADHD and a bold personality and a talkative soul doesn't blend well with the suburban middle school that I was attending. And so naturally, this got in my way when it came time to focus. And so throughout my childhood school years, I sort of became known as the troublemaker. I was the kid who could never focus. And for that reason, I was kicked out of school for the first time unfortunately not the last, in 7th grade. Now, switching school environments, I go from the majority white, uh, middle and upper middle class suburban school to the alternative school. Um, and I'm intermingled with uh, kids that grew up different than I, mostly poor kids, Black, white, and Puerto Rican kids who grew up with not the same structure that I was used to. So now this just added to the character of who I became. Naturally, I still blended in with people, but I never knew which way to go. You know, I was always too hood for the suburban kids, and I always had to prove myself for the hood kids. But really, I just didn't know me. And I was caught up in concepts and labels that we put on people. But nobody tells you that when you're a 15-year-old kid robbing drug dealers and sleeping all day in class. All they tell you is that you have another in school suspension and that you're never going to amount to much. And that you really need to get it together. You need to get it together. But they don't show you how to get it together. Now, simultaneously, throughout these years of 12, 13, and 14, I was also losing touch with my passion. From 10 to 14, I was involved in performing arts. I loved theater and improv, and that was my glory. I'll never forget the time I played the mathematician who was a mathematical wizard. And I had this 5 foot tall pencil rod staff that was taller than me at the time. Or the time when I won an improv contest by portraying 6 characters at once. I cherish those moments, but I gave them up. And I found myself to be more silenced at school. And eventually I was more silenced amongst the peer pressure and pressure of getting involved in that quote unquote street lifestyle. So eventually I was all the way in. I let my passions go and I let school go. And at 15, I was sentenced to the Department of Youth Services, which is youth prison, if you don't know. At 16, I was in ODYS. And at 17, I got my GED, but I was still on probation. Now, fast forward a couple years, and I'm 20 years old. And by this time, it's about 6 or 7 years that I've silenced myself and I've let the world silence me and what I love to do. And I'm just trying to figure it out. But that all changes one day when I step foot in this community center. Now, this place had it all. This place was bustling with life, and there was just this spirit of growth that was in the air that you couldn't help but pick up. As I'm sure you've guessed by now, this community center was in the oddest place of all. It was in a prison. It was at Marion Correctional. And this community center, it was ran by this nonprofit. This group of people that came in called themselves Healing Broken Circles. And the place that it created was like a tropical island in the Arctic Ocean. This community center became an oasis, and things were happening there. And I recognized that, and I wanted to be a part of the things that were happening. It seemed that everybody that was down there was there for a specific reason, and they were there following their passion. And so this community center became my enclave. I found mentors down there, some of them twice my age, and that same age being the amount of time that they've served. These guys had wisdom, and ironically enough, they had experience. I would, after all, any day, compare uh, the people in this community center quality enough to compete with any university. I started studying Spanish down there. I started to learn about philosophers and philosophical thoughts that had never even thought of before, new concepts. I even learned how to use computer software and Microsoft, Excel, things that I should have been learning that whole time that I was sleeping in class, things that I'm learning now. And I started to develop a sense of purpose again, a sense of clear vision that had been gone for so long. But it wasn't until August 2015 that I really stepped my game up. At this time, I was 2.5 years in on my 5 years of incarceration. And uh, the talks were of a TEDx that was going to be happening in October. Every year, a couple times a year, Healing Broken Circles and the Community Center put together some TEDx events. And this one was centered around youth. And mind you, I'm 21 years old, fit right in perfect to speak at this event. So it was posed to me to come up with a talk. What do I have to say? And I pondered it for a little bit, and a couple days went by. And, I threw it around, but I wasn't fully on board. Then about a week went by. They're like, hey, Kevin, do you have a talk? Are you going to be ready? And I was still bouncing around, but, I don't know. I'm kind of busy. I'm doing other things. Until eventually I was more so voluntold, like, hey, you're going to be speaking at the TEDx Youth. Prepare something nice. So I went back to my rack and I started writing. But I got stuck. I was thinking, what do I have to say? I haven't done much of anything in the past 7 years, but wind up in youth and adult prisons. What do I have to say? What do I want to say to the world? And I thought about this, and I thought about my situation that I was in, the collective situation that I was in, and how I think it could get better, and what I don't want to see for myself. I ended up giving a talk about how I think there should be more professional opportunities in prison, and how things like having this community center where people can learn, hone different professional skills is so integral to people's growth. That we're not just warehouse managers and we're not just welders or backline cooks, but we can be facilitators and educators, and we can hold professional careers. So I'm back in this community center and I'm practicing my speech every day. And there was 3 people, Wayne, Black, and Scotty. And now these guys were producers of the TEDx event, and they knew what they were doing. And I looked up to these guys, and they gave me, they were like mentors to me. And I'm giving my speech one day, and all of a sudden I get a paper ball thrown at my head. And first I'm like, what the fuck? Okay, I'm just gonna brush that off. And then another paper ball is thrown at my head, and I stop my speech. And I'm like, what the fuck is this about? And then Wayne keeps telling me, he says, keep going. Don't let me distract you. Are you gonna get distracted up on stage? What happens if something in the audience goes crazy, And I learned then that a valuable lesson that it wasn't about memorizing my talk. It was about knowing what I had to say and relaying that and truly knowing what I had to say. And so the big day came, and I'm ready to give this TED talk. And I know that in this audience is 300 people. And this group is blended between 150 of my co-residents in this prison and 150 from all across the country. People from San Diego, a university, from a professor from the University of San Diego. People from New York who work on, prison education in New York. people from all over, college students, Ohio State students, Ohio University students. And when I walk out on that stage, I see 300 eyes staring at me, wanting to hear what I had to say. And for the first time in 7 years, I felt like I wasn't silenced anymore. I felt like I actually did have something to say, and I said it. That day, that speech was about finding my space. It was about relaying a message that I was carrying, and it was about opening my voice again. It was more than just the content of what I had to say. After that, my involvement in the community center grew so much. And I realized that what I found in the community center wasn't just a place where I can learn, but I found my people that I've been searching for damn near my whole life. And that community center meant just so much to me because it gave me the experience that I didn't have. It became my college, my university, through some fundamental years that I had lost. And from that day forward, I never again thought that life was over. Before I gave this speech, I thought this is it. I'm going to be a career criminal. I just got out the hole a couple months before I gave this talk. And I thought it's over. But afterward, I knew that I wasn't defined as some of the worst mistakes that I've done. And I knew that there's always people to listen to. And I knew that I could still connect with people. I remember there was this girl actually that I met at the TEDx event, and she became my buddy. She enjoyed my speech. We were quick friends throughout the whole event, and for the first time in 2.5 years, I had felt like a human again. I wasn't an inmate. And at the end of the day, she gave me a hug, and this hug just took me aback so much. Mind you, I've never been nervous with women, but it was 2.5 years since I felt a woman's touch. And I was warned by the staff that there was absolutely no hugging allowed. So when this girl my age did something so normal, it threw me off. And reluctantly, I hugged her back. But it was these moments that I'll forever remember that changed my life and gave me my inspiration again, gave me my voice again. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just go ahead and snap it up for you, Kevin. That was fantastic. I loved it. Thank you very much for sharing and your vulnerability and your honesty and transparency. That was greatly appreciated. Coming up next to tell his story is Black, who is a drummer, a rapper, would love to break dance, but has bad knees. And believe it or not, he hates Kool-Aid. So take it away, Black.
I put on the dirtiest shoes that I could find and set out on my way. I could already feel the tears, but I never let them fall because crying is a sign of weakness, and I'm not weak. Around the back of the apartment complex, I look around, a place that's unfamiliar, a place that doesn't feel like home. I can't really tell you how I'm feeling. I just know that I feel, so I move because that's what I do. Walking up the winding road, I feel my pocket vibrate. I reach in, grab my phone. One of the only two things I cared to bring. I look at the screen. It's Wayne. He wants to FaceTime. He's been my friend since we were 9 years old. He's the one who taught me to be with the shit. I answer. What's up, man? Where you at? I'm cool, bro. This shit overrated. I'm about to go back. Man, you tripping. Where you at? Nah, man, I'm cool, man. I'm cool. Man, go home. I'm about to pull up on you, man. Go home. Just to appease him, I tell him I'm going home, but I know I'm not. All right, bro, I got you. I'm about to go. All right, man, I'm about to pull up on you. All right. I hang up the phone and keep going. Winding the corner to the main road is my playground. Corner stores, drive-throughs, car dealerships. If I really wanted to go back right now, I could, in any way that I could. For some reason, I just want to post about it. So I pull out my phone and I get on Facebook. Ever wish you can go back to where you were just to feel like you again? I post it and keep walking. I cross the street to a gas station. I go in, look around. The moment of truth. But really, I just need something to drink. Something to make me sit down somewhere. Not really a beer drinker. I go straight to the beer aisle. I look in, it's Budweiser, Bud Light, Heineken, a bunch of shit I never heard of before that I would never drink. But I settle on Budweiser. I grab two. I turn to go to the counter, turn back, grab two more. Getting up to the counter, I see it all play out. If I really wanted to go back right now, I could. I reach in my pocket, grab the second thing that I chose to bring. I pull out my wallet, pull out my debit card, pay for my beers, grab a can of Pringles, and turn to leave. On the way out, Twin calls me. Now, Twin is my accountability partner, and we spent priceless years in prison talking about the focus of reentry and the things that we would do once we got out. I answered, "What's up, bro? Hey, what's up with you, man? You good?" And I don't know why he asked me that. Caught off guard by why he said it, I really didn't say anything. "Hey, man, are you good?" "Yeah, I'm good, man. What's up with you?" "Hey, man, I got something that's gonna turn you all the way up." So now I'm intrigued. "Oh, yeah? What you got?" Man, I can't really give you the particulars of it right now because I still got to holler at my mans, but when it come down, it's gonna turn you all the way up. Walking out the gas station, I'm circling in the parking lot. You know that thing you do when you on the phone. "For real, man, you got me for real. Like, yeah, bro, I got you. I promise." "All right, man, just let me know." "I got you." "Yep." And I hang up the phone. I start moving. The tears are heavier now, but I still won't let them fall. And as I cross the street, I walk past all those stores that I could potentially do something to, but I decide to keep going. But I don't know where I'm going back to. See, when I was in prison, I felt like the president. Everywhere I went, everyone knew my name. When they saw me, they knew me. And now that I'm out here, nobody knows me. And I hate that. My phone rings again. It's Merriweather. He wants to FaceTime, only it's not FaceTime, it's Messenger. So I take the audio call. I can't bear to look at him because he like uncle to everybody. "What's up, man? Hey, what's up, bro? You good?" "Yeah, I'm good." "Nah, man, I seen you just posted something. You need to talk?" I tell him, "Nah, man, I'm good." He's like, "All right, I'm here for you. I'm just right around the corner." "No, I'm good, bro. I'm about to go home." "All right, man, just let me know." "I appreciate you, bro. Peace." I hang up the phone, continue on my path. Rounding the corner, the first tear falls, but it only fell out my left eye. So maybe that means something, but maybe not. I round the corner back around the apartment complex and I stop. I just need to breathe. I take a few breaths, settle myself, go into the back, sit down. I grab my first beer. I drink it like water. Grab my second beer, turn it up. I drink that too. My phone rings again. This time it's somebody from the inside, my big brother Chris. Now, not really my big brother, mind you, just somebody I hold that way. I answer, "What's up, man? What you want?" "Man, this shit overrated, bro. I'm about to be on my way back to you." "What?" "Yeah, man. I can't do this shit no more, man. I'm about to be. I hope you don't got no bunkie, because they mess around and be me." "Man, you sound stupid. You tripping." "Nah, man, for real, man. I just can't really." And he laughed at me. And now I'm talking about like a giggle or a snicker. I'm talking about he belly laughed at me. So if I could see him, he would be rolling on the floor laughing. And he laughed so hard that I started laughing too. And I try to tell him, like, man, it's not funny, man. It's like, "No, you sound stupid right now. You about to give all this shit up? What? So you can be back here with me? And I'm working hard to get out there." And when he says that, I hear how ridiculous it sounds. I hear how stupid it is. And I try to tell him, like, man, it's not that. And he's like, "Well, what is it?" And I had to face it. I was scared. See, at this moment, my life is a roller coaster. The world feels too big, and I've only been out of prison 36 days, and I lost my way already. But I can't tell him that, because all we talk about is what we would do if we were given the opportunity, if we had the chance. And I feel like I'm blowing it. And I hear how it sounds, but I don't know how to say that. So the only thing he could tell me is, "Man, if you get this shit up right now, you stupid." And I'm like, but it's not that. I mean, what else would I do?" And he says, "You grind." And he was right. So sitting through that conversation, sitting through talking to him, a few more laughs, him laughing at me and me not laughing, I seen that we spend so much time trying to fight and claw and think about what we would do. And we don't know what we would do. You have 60 seconds remaining. The universal sound of a prison call to me is, "Wrap that shit up." I'm cool, man. I ain't gonna do nothing. Our parting words: "Man, sit your ass down somewhere and chill. I promise, bro, I'm not gonna do nothing. I got you." You're like, "All right, man, for real, you cool? I mean, I'll call you back." "No, no, man, I just need to sit here and just think." Something I wasn't doing when I made the decision that I was gonna throw it all away. He's like, "All right, man. I love you, bro. Be safe. Be easy, bro. I'm cool." I hang the phone up, turn my third beer up. I don't drink it this time. I sip it, savory, like wine. And I sit. Thank you.
All right, let me snap it up for you too, Black. That was amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Without further ado, we just gonna keep this party rolling. We're gonna get into the next story, which is guaranteed to maybe jerk a tear. Our next teller is Kendra, who loves to dance. She loves karaoke. She's a writer. She's an editor. She's the executive director of Healing Broken Circles. And the little known fact about her is that she is a competitive Frisbee player. So without further ado, take it away. Kendra, tell us your story.
Black, a bearded man in his early 30s, has his mini notebook open, ready to write. By a few years, rattles off 5 words: silly, serious, committed, logical, Black. Then Ron says to Black, "Now you give me." Black pulls a piece of paper out of his notebook and starts to write. Smart, isolated, misunderstood. Interaction is happening. I'm a few feet away unlocking the last of 13 padlocks, just like I do every morning, freeing up the books and papers and materials and basically everything that we use to run this place, our community center. With the last of the locks unlocked, I pull up a chair to the table and I join Ron and Black. I don't ask them what's up with this 5-word thing that they're doing. I don't say anything at all. I just get a piece of paper, cut it into pieces, put it on the table, signaling that I want to do this 5-word thing too. As we're there at the table, writing and talking and thinking, and very likely that person in the hallway walking by would be a CO, a corrections officer, a prison guard. That person walking by would see what they usually see and hear. These men who are incarcerated here and me focused on work. Except because Black walked in the door this morning with self-betterment on his mind, on this morning, right now, what we're doing is not officially work. Walking by would also see behind us about 7 guys in prison blues doing yoga. And over here in this room, maybe 20 or so circled up, taking our class on communication styles. And over in room 1, where they're doing improv, well, who knows what the CO would see because it's improv. The CO would see all of this because our walls are made of windows. There's no place here that isn't easily surveilled because this is prison. So the first 5-word list that I start is for Ron. I have bright, reliable, self-contained. I find that the first 3 words come pretty quick, but it's the last two left to sum up a person that is a much harder commitment to make. On Black's list, I also am paused at 5. So far, I have 1, self-aware, 2, petty, and for 3, I write down romantic. If anyone who has heard his poetry understands this, but I look at that word, romantic, and I get cautious, which ends up being a word these men will apply to me. And I change romantic to romantic thinker. But then I ask Black, can I use a short phrase? He says, my game, my rules, 1 word. Compound word, I push. He gives me a look, exasperated, but with just enough of a smile that I take that as a go ahead. For number 4 on my list of 5 for Black, I end up going with comfortable as a wingman, capable as a frontman, a full-on sentence. And then number 5 on Black's list is I put talented/dedicated, and I don't ask for permission on the use of the slash. On all these pieces of paper we have with traits and characteristics on them, there's 1 word. I put it on my list for Ron, spelled phonetically, and Black put it on his list for me, spelled correctly. Perspicacious. With this word, the need for a dictionary becomes real. We don't have a dictionary, but these men are resourceful. And somehow, as always happens in here, when there's a need, it somehow gets filled and I don't ask. And on this particular morning, I'm vaguely aware of somebody walking out the door. Ron's in the hallway for a bit. I'm working on my list of 5. I look up and Ron is there back at the table, but now he's sitting back in his chair, thumbing through the pages of a dictionary. So this word, perspicacious, I think I already know what it means because it's been used on me before as hyper aware, like hyper vigilant, like how you would be when you're expecting the world to cave in at any possible moment. I've been told that it's a trauma response, a survival tactic, and I've always taken it as a criticism. But then Ron reads, perspicacious, keen awareness and understanding. That sounds pretty cool. That sounds like a compliment. That's new. Other words that these men give to me are guarded, cautious, apprehensive. That's 3. Like when things come in batches of 3, they are not so easily ignored. And I wonder, is that who I am in here? Is that who I am? Is that who I become after all the years working here with the COs and the windows and the searches? Other words that I get are insightful, caring, and then squirrely/random. What? Ron jerks his head around as if to explain that I am somehow apparently easily distracted. I do have to own this one, actually, but I also know that this one is 100% location based. The men in here are like masters of no reaction. Like they can have no movement, no expression, no visible reaction whatsoever. And yet they know what's happening all around them. And sometimes they can even predict what's about to happen. I'll quiz them even sometimes, like sitting in front of me, I'll say, hey, what's going on behind you right now? And without fail, without looking, they can tell me exactly what's happening. It's a truly impressive skill, also a survival tactic. Other words that I get from these men are, I get mindful, and then I get connected / empathetic / perspicacious. That one comes from Black, mind you, the game master, the one word rule maker who's pulled out not just the single, but the double slash. These 5 words, I don't think you would ask just anyone to give them to you, right? You have to be some trust, some connection. You have to know someone. You have to think about who they are and see them for who they are. When I was training in the training that I took, when I first started working in prison, the stiff, expressionless man in the video said that when an offender looks happy to see me or asks me how I'm doing or how my family is doing, then that is a signal that they are now dangerous for me to be working with. We have set up a system where everyday human niceties are considered a security risk. On that morning, Black, Ron, and we could have had a meeting, but we didn't. I didn't file any paperwork or go over curriculum. I just pulled up a chair and sat down at the table, and the 5 words happened. No standard conventional understanding of prisons, no overly assured evidence-based opinion about what people in prison need or what prison programming should be can understand or begin to understand what was so important about that 1 hour. If Black were to ask me to put it into 5 words, I would say trust, healing, fun, generosity, community.
Thank you. Thank you, Kendra. And last but certainly not least, we have the mysterious Sean. Tell us your story, Sean.
Okay. It was the 5th grade career day. A police officer came to speak to my class. He asked us, what do you want to be when you grow up? I raised my hand. I said that I wanted to be an architect. My childhood hobby was drawing. I used to draw all my favorite cartoons. I never sketched the person, but I knew I had potential and talent. I also dreamed of being an astronaut. I loved looking at the stars. Unfortunately, my dream would never come true. I found myself in juvenile detention again. I was 14 the last time that I was here. Bow it up, shoulder to shoulder. Parade rest. Commands an officer would give as we lined up, folding our hands behind our back to cross the yard. This time, my hands were not behind my back. Instead, I carried a white laundry bag. In it, my state issue from the quartermaster. 3 pants, 3 shirts, 3 white t-shirts, 3 socks, 3 underwear, a coat, a jacket, and 1 white towel and a washcloth. As I walked up to the housing unit, a group of boys stood there laughing and pointing at me. They said, "Aha, we knew you'd be back." Suddenly, I woke up, relieved but uneasy. It seemed real, but it was just a dream. I sat up in bed and I said to myself, I ain't never going back. It seemed like a normal day besides the dream. Then again, nothing had been normal about my life. I will never forget March 5th, 1996. I was 17, trying to figure my life out. I have been trying to figure my life out since I was 12. I was raised in a single mother home. My father wasn't there for me. He left when I was 5. I didn't know what to do with that. The crack epidemic hit my family hard. I did not know what to do with that. I wore the same clothes to school almost every other day. I was lucky if I got a new pair of shoes to go with the new school year. My self-esteem was low. I did not know what to do with that. My face was hard like a statue. I got into a fight in the 5th grade in front of the whole class because one of my classmates said that one of my family members gave his older brother oral sex for crack cocaine. I did not know what to do with that. All I could do was feel anger. I felt nobody cared. My attitude became, if don't nobody care, then I don't care. I pressed play on the boombox. For the Love of Money by the rap group Bone Thugs and Harmony played as I got dressed. I should have been in school. I had recently dropped out of the 10th grade. I wanted to stay in school and learn and make something of myself, but I couldn't concentrate with everything that was going on around me. I would just go to class and lay my head down and go to sleep. The first time I went to drop out, my guidance counselor talked me into staying in school and taking the work program. I would go to school for half the day, and then for the rest of the day, I would go job hunting. I went to about 3 different job interviews, but I never got a call back. I got discouraged. I gave up. I decided I was going to try selling crack. So I reached in my Swisher box and I grabbed the bag. I lifted my pillow and I grabbed the .45 automatic. My mother's boyfriend had given me the gun because we had just moved into a new house in a dangerous neighborhood. He told me to not take it out the house, and I never did. Not until I was the victim of a home invasion while visiting a friend's house. Imagine having a gun put to the back of your head while you are face down on the floor. You can feel the cold metal. And the anticipation starts filling up in you. And you know you're facing a possible internal sunset. Fortunately, I survived the robbery. However, a seed of trauma fell upon the soil of my mind. And what sprung up was a vow that I would never, ever let anyone have my life in their hands ever again. From that day, the gun stayed on me. I went downstairs and I asked my mother for her car keys. She said, "Give me one. I know you got it." Another family member had took me to get some crack the night before, and I guess they told her. "I can't give you this," I said to her, "but I'll give you some money when I get back." So she said, "Well, if you don't give me one, then you can't use my car." We got into an argument, and I stormed out the house. And as the screen door slammed, I heard her yell, "Stay your ass off that block." Usually, it's still cold in March in Cleveland, but this day was nice. The sun was golden, shining brightly through the clouds. I saw a yellow school bus as I crossed the street and briefly thought for a second, I should be in school. As I started walking down a back street, a blue Blazer truck with tinted windows stopped at a stop sign in front of me. It sat there longer than normal. I felt I was being watched. The thought quickly entered my mind, is this someone about to rob me? The truck made a left turn and stopped at the stop sign in front of me. A man jumped out and started coming towards me, yelling something I thought was, "Lay it down." Before I knew it, the gun was in my hand. As I pointed the gun in his direction, the man ran and jumped back in the truck. As the truck sped off, I jumped up and down with adrenaline. Then boom, I pulled the trigger. The bullet hit the awning of a house that sat on the corner. Thankfully, no one got hurt. All it takes is one wrong place, the wrong time, the wrong decision, and your life can be shot quickly down the rabbit hole. It all happened so fast. I did not have time to think. I reacted to what I thought was a robbery. My body said, "Run." I ran in the opposite direction until I got to another street, when I realized I still had the gun in my hand. I put the gun back in my waistband and started to walk. As I turned the corner and started walking, a blue car with a blue light on its roof emerged from the street in front of me. Confused, I thought, how did the police get here so fast? My body said, "Run." I pulled the gun out and turned to run when I saw a man hanging out the door of a white truck shooting at me. My life did flash and my body shut down in the face of death. I fell to the ground and dropped the gun. All I could see next was an army of feet raining down on my face, and then the revelation of guns surrounding me. "Police, don't move." Click and click. My hands were cuffed behind my back. Pressed against the police car, dazed, I stared up into the clouds that suddenly seemed much grayer. The police were approaching people asking for drugs. They were conducting an undercover buy and bust operation. What I thought was "lay it down" was "let me get a dime." They did not believe I was 17. They were very angry with me. We could kill you and put you in a dumpster and no one would ever know or care, one cop said as we entered the police garage. If I was there, I would have killed your black ass, a female officer said as she walked up during my interrogation. The officer who jumped out of the truck, he told me to stand up, took the cuffs off, and punched me in my stomach, knocking me back down into the chair. No one suffered physical harm, but I was bound over from juvenile court to be tried as an adult for attempted murder. I was indicted for 5 counts of felonious assault on police officers when I turned 18. All charges were on an attempt to cause basis. I was offered a plea deal of 10 to 25 years, but I refused. The bailiff brought my mother in to the courtroom in tears. She pleaded with me to take the deal, but I refused. I realized someone could have been hurt or killed, but the fact is, no one got hurt or killed. I never even formed an intention to hurt anyone. I reacted out of trauma. I was in fight or flight mode. The judge got angry with me when I didn't accept the deal. He said, "Don't you know I can give you 100 years?" And then he said, "I'm going to make an example out of you." I went to trial and was found guilty. At sentencing, the judge asked if I had anything to say. I don't remember exactly everything that I said. I was too emotional. I do remember saying something about doing better. Then he asked, "Do you want to know what I think about you?" And then he yelled, "I think you're a monster." My spirit was crushed. And after I lost my appeal, I was devastated. The hope that once flourished in my heart became a barren desert. I wanted to die, but in that moment, having tied 2 connected sheets around my neck, I saw 3 choices. 1, I could kill myself, then I wouldn't be in prison anymore. Or 2, I could continue being angry about my life and continue down the wrong path. Or 3, I could stay strong and fight to reclaim my freedom and disprove the judge's assertion that I am a monster. I chose number 3. Merriam-Webster's definition of monster, number 5, is one that is highly successful. Altogether, I did 17 years. I got a parole my first time at the parole board. Waiting to hear if you have a parole or not is the longest wait of your life. I've been home 8 years now. Against all odds, I turned a negative into a positive. The first thing I did was I got my GED when I was 19. I went to college. I learned graphic design. I did whatever I could do to better myself and prepare for freedom. Being called a monster only fueled my drive to create a more successful future for myself and now my 6-year-old son. The judge got it wrong. I am not a monster. I am one that is highly successful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. That was so powerful. And I felt like I was right there with you the whole time. And, wanting you to win and wanting you to choose life. So very, very good job in immersing us in the story. Well, I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to Black so that he can open it up for the Q&A.
Yes, and but before I open up for questions, I just want to say, just give a shout out again to Ohio Arts Council, Art for Justice Fund, and the Returning Artists Guild for helping us put on this event. And